Hello and welcome back to the channel. Here we make builds for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. We talk about game mechanics, which is what we're going to be doing today. We'll talk about classes and subclasses, guides for DMs and guides for players. Today we're going to be talking about prepared versus known spellcasting, and I am Nathan. All right, here is our agenda for today. I'm going to be defining both prepared and known spellcasting, do a little compare and contrast, and then a little bit of a discussion on why Clerics and Druids can be boring. Bit of a hyperbole there, and we'll get into it a little more later on. So, what is prepared spellcasting? So, a prepared spellcaster knows every spell on their respective list, and at the end of a long rest, they get to prepare a number of spells from that list based on their spellcasting level and their spellcasting ability modifier. So if you're level 1 cleric with a 16 wisdom, you'd be able to prepare 4 spells, for example. If the class has the ritual casting feature, you can only ritual cast spells that you have prepared. The notable exception to this is, of course, wizards, and we'll talk a little bit more about them later on. So here are the prepared spellcasting classes in the game. You've got Artificer, who is an intelligence-based half-caster who can ritual cast. You've got the Cleric, one of the predominant wisdom casters. They have ritual casting and are also a full caster. Druids, again, same thing, wisdom-based ritual caster, full caster. You've got Paladins, who are a charisma-based half-caster. They can't do rituals. You also have Wizards, who are intelligence-based, have a special, better kind of ritual casting, and are also a full caster. So Wizards are unique in that if they have a ritual spell in their spell book, they don't have to prepare it to be able to cast it as a ritual. And Wizards are also unique, and they function as both a prepared and a known spellcaster. And again, I'll talk about that a little more later on. So, what is known spellcasting? So, known spellcasters know a limited number of spells based on your class and what level you are in that class. I think bards get to learn the most spells. So you learn additional spells as you level up, and you can swap out spells as you level up. And if the class has the ritual casting feature, you can ritual cast any spell that you know. So one of the things about being a known spellcaster, again, is that the number of spells you know is exclusively based on your level and nothing to do with your spellcaster modifier or anything like that. So the classes that are known spellcasters, we have bards who use charisma, have the ritual casting feature, and are full casters. We have the fighter, specifically the Eldritch Knight subclass, which is an intelligence-based 1/3 caster. We also have the ranger, which is a wisdom-based half caster. We have the rogue, who is specifically the arcane trickster subclass once again, which is an intelligence-based 1/3 caster. And then we have sorcerer, who is a charisma-based full caster, and then we have the warlock, who is charisma-based. Sometimes they can be a ritual caster, and they are essentially a full caster. They can get ritual casting with the right pact boon and invocations and that kind of thing. So it's a bit of a special case. They also have the pact magic feature, so the way they get their spell slots is a little different, but they essentially function as a known spellcaster with the same kind of scaling as a full caster. Then, of course, we have the wizard, who is intelligence-based, has a special ritual feature, as we discussed earlier, and is a full caster. So, the wizard functions as both a known and a prepared caster because the spells that you know are basically contained in your spell book. You don't get to know the entire wizard list, but every time that you gain a level 1 wizard, you get to add some more spells into your book. As you adventure, you can add more as well. And then you get to prepare your spells from your book. So they're kind of like a known in that you get a subset of the whole group of spells, but unlike that, they get more spells, but you got to pick which ones you're going to prepare on a given day. So a little bit of compare and contrast here. So generally speaking, known casters are less flexible than a prepared caster because a prepared caster can, if you know what you're going to be doing at the end of the next adventuring day, you can pick your spells for the next day at the end of your long rest if you know that you're going to do a specific thing. Like if you know you're going to be exploring a dungeon and there's probably going to be traps, you might be able to prepare a more utility-based spell. And generally with a known spellcaster, you want to take the best spells available for your build and what you're doing. And so you're not going to have as many of those utility options necessarily. Now, an advantage that known spellcasters get is generally the spells that are on their list are a lot more powerful. You have a lot more options for damage and utility, and the spells are usually better on a level-to-level comparison than the prepared caster. That said, the prepared caster has a better spell slot level power spike. And what I mean by that is when you get to odd numbered levels as a full caster, you get access to the next level of spells. So level 2, level 3, you get second level spells. Level 5, you get third level spells. Level 7, you get fourth level spells, etc. Now, because a prepared caster can change their entire spell list out at every rest, as soon as you're level 5, you can put up all your third level spells on your list potentially, and so you have access to all of the good stuff the class has as soon as it's available. Whereas if you're a known spellcaster, like let's say you're a wizard and there are 4 or 5 really good third level spells you want, you're not going to be able to get them all immediately necessarily. Like just by a level with a wizard, you'll only get 2. Or if you're a sorcerer, say, you get to learn 1 from getting to level 5, and you get to retrain 1 because you gained a level in the class. But that's still only 2 new spells that you got, whereas your cleric friend that just got to level 5 can access all of their spells. But again, remember that known spellcasters generally have better lists, so there's a little bit of a balance there. One of the other things that you can potentially do with a known spellcaster, and this is an interesting thing that I don't see talked a lot about, is you can potentially dump your spellcasting attribute without losing spells. Now, this is a very niche thing to do. It has to be the right kind of build, but because the spells known scale exclusively with your level in the class, you don't necessarily need to have a high intelligence, wisdom, or charisma to be able to use it, which can also mean that potentially you don't need as high of an ability score modifier if you're going to multi-class and do a full caster that's a known spellcasting class, because you'll get the same number of spells no matter what. You might be going for some of the more utility or buff or support options on that list. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit here while we're talking about prepared spells about why, in my opinion, Clerics and Druids are kind of boring. Now, don't get me wrong, Clerics and Druids are powerful and fun, but I think there can be some issues with their mechanics, as I'm going to lay out here. So, they're both prepared casters, so they have access to their entire spell lists all the time. So, what this means is that the only real difference between two characters of the same class are their subclass features and the unique subclass spells that might come with this. So, the biggest problem that I see here is that it's going to lead to little to no replayability between two characters of the same subclass, as you can just prepare the same spells. So if I played a nature cleric in one campaign and I was thinking about playing a nature cleric again, there's nothing preventing me from there's not really any decisions I could make, assuming I stayed full cleric, that would enable the two characters to be different. Because let's say one of them liked this other kind of spell, I could just switch my whole spell list over to that at any time. And this can exist between subclasses as well. So this can kind of lead to a mentality of, I've played one, I've played them all. This can happen with, again, both druids and clerics, because, again, a lot of the only real choice that you have to make is what your subclass is. You don't have to make a choice on any of your spells because you can change them at any time that you want. So if you play true druids whose subclasses, say, don't completely change the way that you play the class, you could just prepare the same spells and they kind of become the same character. And I know for people like me, I really like to do variety in the characters I play in D&D and other games. And if I feel like, I've played a druid, and even though this other one is a new subclass, because I can access the same spells, they're kind of the same. Obviously, there are exceptions to this. There are subclasses that completely change the way a class is played, like Moon Druid, for example. But that's just my little gripe about Clerics and Druids. And again, don't get me wrong, I like both of them. They are powerful, but they can feel very samey. Like, if you're playing in a campaign with a cleric, it's very likely that they are going to, at level 3, they're going to pull out Spiritual Weapon. At level 5, they're going to pull out Spirit Guardians. The spells that are the cleric's best spells and the spells that are the druid's best spells are pretty well known at this point. And so, because they all have, there's no trade-off for preparing that spell, because you can just change it anytime that you want. And so, it can lead to this issue where, oh, he's playing a cleric, they're playing the same character. Why would you have the same thing? Because they have the same spells. So, but yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to my first talk on mechanics. Let me know if there's any mechanics you find interesting that you would like me to cover. I'm probably going to be doing one next on force movement and dangerous area of effect spells. I'm thinking about doing one on grappling. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.